The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest, but I kept my face neutral. Had to. 30 people were watching, drinks in hand, all waiting to see how Owen Brooks would handle his fiancée's latest performance. My friends think I should test the market before locking myself down, Liz announced, her voice carrying across Mia's living room like she was addressing shareholders. The laughter that followed wasn't the good kind. I stood there in my cheap button-down, holding a beer that suddenly tasted like cardboard, watching my future wife work the room. Elizabeth Brooks-to-be, marketing executive extraordinaire, had just turned our engagement into a business pitch, and I was apparently the risky investment. "Come on, Liz," someone called out. "You're terrible." But she wasn't done. Never was. "No, seriously. Owen's great, but how do you know you're getting the best deal if you don't shop around?" The room erupted. Half the people laughed. The other half shot me those pitying looks you give roadkill. I recognized most faces from our social circle, Mia's influencer friends, Liz's work crowd, a few neighbors from our subdivision, all people who'd smile at me next week and pretend this never happened. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I walked across the room, weaving between clusters of gossipers, my footsteps somehow loud on the hardwood floor. Conversations died as I passed. By the time I reached Mia Sanders, our hostess, the entire party had gone quiet. Mia stood near the kitchen island, perfectly posed like always, her blonde hair catching the pendant lights. She'd been Liz's best friend since college, the kind of woman who documented every meal on social media and called it lifestyle content. "Mia," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Want to grab dinner this weekend?" The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Mia's eyes went wide, darting between me and Liz. Someone's wine glass clinked against the counter. A phone buzzed. What?" Mia stammered. "Dinner. You know, testing the market." I kept my voice steady, conversational. Since apparently that's what we're all doing now. The room exploded. Gasps, nervous laughter. Someone actually said, "Oh, snap," like we were in high school. I could feel Liz's stare burning into my back, but I didn't turn around. Mia's mouth opened and closed twice before she found her voice. "Owen, I don't think... It's just dinner," I said. "Unless you think I'm not worth testing." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The challenge hung in the air. Mia's entire brand was built on being desirable, available, the kind of woman who had options. Saying no would be admitting I wasn't even worth considering. Saying yes would detonate what was left of my engagement. She looked at me for a long moment, then smiled. "You know what? Sure. Saturday work for you?" The room went completely insane. I nodded, shook her hand like we just closed a business deal, and walked toward the front door. Behind me, voices erupted in chaos. Shocked laughter, urgent whispers, someone demanding to know what just happened. I made it 3 steps outside before Liz caught up. "What the hell was that?" She grabbed my arm, spinning me around. Even furious, she was stunning. The kind of beautiful that made people forgive her for almost anything. "Market research," I said. "Isn't that what you wanted?" "Don't be ridiculous, I was joking." "Were you?" I pulled out my phone, swiped to our text messages. "Because here's what you sent Mia yesterday. Owen's sweet, but I wonder if I'm settling. There have to be better options out there." Her face went pale. "You went through my phone?" "I pay for the family plan. Everything backs up to the cloud." I scrolled down. And here's the one from Tuesday. Sometimes I look at him and think, is this really the best I can do? "Owen, you're taking those out of context?" "And my personal favorite," I continued, finding the message that had started this whole thing. "Mia thinks I should see what else is available before I commit. Maybe she's right. Maybe I owe it to myself to explore other possibilities." Liz's mouth worked soundlessly. Around us, the suburban night felt suddenly cold. Through Mia's windows, I could see people pressed against the glass, trying to watch our confrontation. "Those were private conversations," she finally managed. "So was our relationship, apparently." I pocketed the phone. But since we're both exploring other possibilities now, I guess it doesn't matter. "This is insane. You can't seriously be interested in Mia." The truth was, I wasn't. Mia Sanders was attractive in a generic Instagram filter way, but she had the personality of a marketing brochure. This wasn't about wanting her. This was about refusing to be the only one playing by the rules in a game where everyone else was cheating. "Why not?" I asked. "You said it yourself. I should know what I'm worth in the current market." Liz stepped closer, her voice dropping to that intimate tone she used when she wanted something. "Baby, listen to me. This is all just pre-wedding jitters. Everyone gets them. It doesn't mean anything. Then why did you say it in front of 30 people? She didn't have an answer for that. Or rather, she had an answer but couldn't say it out loud. Because humiliating me in public was part of the fun. Because making me squirm while everyone watched was how she maintained her position as the alpha in our relationship. I'm going home, I said. Enjoy the party. I walked to my car, a 5-year-old Honda that looked pathetic next to the BMWs and Mercedes filling Mia's driveway. As I drove away, I could see people spilling out onto the front lawn, phones already out, probably texting everyone who wasn't there about the drama they'd just witnessed. By morning, the whole suburb would know that Owen Brooks had asked out his fiancée's best friend at a party. They'd know Liz had talked about testing the market. They'd know our perfect relationship was apparently not so perfect. What they wouldn't know, what I was just beginning to understand myself, was that this was only the beginning. I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. The phone had been buzzing all night like an angry wasp, but I'd turned it face down and tried to sleep. Tried being the key word. The messages were a predictable mix. Half from people who'd been at the party, wanting more details, or offering fake sympathy. The other half from friends who'd heard secondhand accounts and couldn't believe what they were hearing. Dude, did you really ask out Mia Sanders? That was from Jake, my old college roommate. Call me ASAP, we need to talk about damage control. My sister Rachel, always the diplomat. Owen, what you did last night was completely inappropriate, and we need to discuss this like adults. That was Liz, sent at 2:47 a.m. I deleted them all without responding. Coffee first. Then I'd figure out how to navigate whatever social minefield I'd created. I was halfway through my first cup when I heard Liz's key in the front door. We didn't live together officially. She kept her own apartment across town, but she'd been spending more nights here as the wedding approached. Had been, past tense. She walked into the kitchen looking like she'd slept about as well as I had. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she wasn't wearing makeup. It was almost jarring to see her looking so normal. We need to talk, she said. Good morning to you too. She ignored that, pulling out her phone. Do you have any idea what you've done? Look at this. She showed me her screen. The Neighborhood Watch Facebook group, usually reserved for complaints about dog waste and suspicious delivery trucks, was buzzing with activity. Someone had posted about drama at the Sanders party, and the comments were multiplying by the minute. Margaret Chen saw the whole thing. Liz continued, scrolling through responses. She's telling everyone that you publicly humiliated me. Janet Morrison thinks we're having relationship problems. And don't even get me started on what people are saying about Mia. I took another sip of coffee. What are they saying about Mia? That she's a home wrecker. That she's been after you this whole time. That I should have seen it coming. Liz's voice was getting higher, more strained. This is a disaster, Owen. A complete disaster. Seems like the market research is going well, then? She slammed the phone down on the counter. Stop saying that. This isn't funny. You're right, I said. It's not funny. It's pathetic. But it's also exactly what you asked for. I never asked for you to embarrass me in front of everyone we know. No, you just asked to shop around for someone better. I figured I'd do the same. Liz stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her recalculating. This was what she did. Constant strategic thinking, always working 3 moves ahead. It's what made her good at her job and exhausting to live with. Okay, she said finally. I can see you're upset, and maybe I could have phrased things better last night. But this isn't the way to handle it. How should I handle it? Like an adult. We sit down, we talk through our feelings, we work on our communication. She was using her therapy voice now, the tone she'd picked up from the couples counselor we'd seen exactly twice before she declared us fixed. And then what? We pretend you weren't serious about wanting to explore other options? I wasn't serious. It was just girl talk, venting. Everyone does it. I pulled out my phone, opened the cloud backup of her messages. Let's see. Here's you and Mia from 3 weeks ago. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd said yes when David Martinez asked me out. David Martinez, wasn't he the guy from your company retreat? Her face flushed. That was hypothetical. Here's another one. Owen's reliable, but reliable isn't the same as exciting. I keep thinking there has to be someone out there who's both. I looked up at her. Also, hypothetical? You're being ridiculous. And my personal favorite, what if I'm making a mistake? What if I marry him and spend the rest of my life wondering what I missed out on? I set the phone down. Sent yesterday morning, 6 hours before the party. The kitchen went quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator. Outside, I could hear Mrs. Patterson walking her dog, the same route she took every morning at exactly 8:15. Those were private thoughts, Liz said quietly. So were mine. But apparently we're both sharing now. She sat down across from me, reaching for my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't squeeze back either. Owen, listen to me. Everyone has doubts sometimes. Everyone wonders what if. That doesn't mean they act on those thoughts. You did act on them. Last night. I made a stupid joke at a party. You humiliated me in front of our friends because you wanted to see how I'd react. You wanted to test whether I'd fight for you or just take it. I met her eyes. Well, now you know. She was quiet for a moment, studying my face like she was seeing me clearly for the first time in months. So what happens now? She asked. Now we both explore our options. Isn't that what you wanted? And Mia? What about her? Are you actually going to take her to dinner? The honest answer was that I hadn't thought that far ahead. The whole thing had been a reaction, a moment of pure impulse driven by anger and humiliation. But now, sitting in my kitchen with Liz looking at me like I was a stranger, I realized I was curious to see what would happen next. I guess we'll find out, I said. Liz's expression hardened. Fine. If that's how you want to play this? I'm not playing anything. I'm just following your lead. She stood up, grabbing her purse from the counter. Don't blame me for whatever happens next, Owen. You made this choice. No, I said. You made the choice when you decided to shop around. I just decided to shop back. She left without another word, the front door closing with a sharp click that seemed to echo through the empty house. I sat alone in my kitchen, drinking coffee and watching the sun climb higher through the window. My phone buzzed with another text, probably someone else wanting details about the party drama. But for the first time in months, I didn't feel the urge to explain myself or apologize or try to smooth things over. Instead, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time, curiosity about what came next. The market test was officially underway. I spent the weekend doing what I do best, research. My job as an IT consultant had taught me that information was power, and that most people were surprisingly careless with their digital footprints. Liz was no exception. Saturday morning, while she was presumably dealing with the social fallout from Friday night, I was in my home office going through 5 years of digital history. Cloud backups, social media activity, location data, all the breadcrumbs people leave without thinking about it. What I found was illuminating. The messages between Liz and Mia went back months, not weeks. A steady stream of complaints about our relationship, fantasies about other men, and increasingly bold suggestions that maybe Liz deserved better. But Mia wasn't just listening, she was encouraging. You're too good for him, she'd written in March. You could have anyone. Owen's nice, but nice doesn't pay for the lifestyle you want. From April. And my personal favorite, from just last week, Girl, you need to see what else is out there. Life's too short to settle for safe. Mia Sanders wasn't just Liz's best friend. She was her enabler, her cheerleader, the voice telling her that our relationship wasn't good enough, which made what happened next even more interesting. Sunday afternoon, my phone rang. Mia's name on the caller ID. Owen, hi, it's Mia. I wanted to talk about Friday night. Her voice was different than usual, less performed, more nervous. What about it? I think maybe we should call off dinner. This whole situation is getting out of hand. I leaned back in my desk chair, looking at the spreadsheet I'd created tracking all the messages between her and Liz. Getting cold feet? It's not that. It's just, Liz is my best friend, and you two are engaged. This feels wrong. Funny. You didn't seem to think it was wrong when you were telling her she could do better than me. Silence on the other end of the line. I know about the messages, Mia. All of them. I don't know what you're talking about. March 15th. Owen seems sweet, but kind of boring. Don't you want someone more exciting? April 3rd. You're settling, and we both know it. Should I keep going? More silence. How did you... Never mind. Look, those were just girl talk. We weren't being serious. Serious enough that Liz felt comfortable announcing her market research project at your party. I could hear her breathing on the other end, probably trying to figure out how much I knew and how much trouble she was in. Okay, she said finally. Maybe I did encourage her to think about whether you two were right for each other, but only because I care about her happiness. Sure you do. I do. Liz is amazing. She's beautiful, successful, smart. She could have anyone. I just wanted her to be sure she was making the right choice. And now? Now I think maybe we all made some mistakes. I pulled up another file on my computer, Mia's social media analytics. Her Instagram engagement had spiked dramatically since Friday night. The drama was good for her brand. Here's what I think, I said. I think you've been pushing Liz to question our relationship because it makes you feel important. You get to be the wise friend, the one who sees what she can't see. And now that it's blown up in everyone's face, you want to back out before it gets messier. That's not... But here's the thing, Mia. You started this game, and I'm curious to see how it ends. What do you mean? I mean we're having dinner Saturday night, 7 o'clock at Romano's, unless you want to explain to everyone why you're backing out now. Another long pause. I could practically hear her calculating the social cost of canceling versus the social cost of going through with it. This is crazy, she said. This is the market you wanted Liz to explore. Welcome to the research phase. She hung up without saying goodbye. I spent the rest of Sunday going deeper into the digital archaeology. What I found painted a picture that was both better and worse than I'd expected. Better because Liz hadn't actually cheated, at least not physically. Her location data showed she'd been where she said she'd be when she said she'd be there. No secret meetings or mysterious gaps in her schedule. Worse, because the emotional infidelity was more extensive than I'd realized. Not just complaints about our relationship, but active fantasies about specific alternatives. David Martinez from her office, the personal trainer at her gym, even Jake Morrison from down the street, whose wife Janet was apparently clueless about Liz's interest. She'd been shopping around for months, maybe longer. The only difference was that now it was out in the open. Monday morning brought a new development, an email from Liz's sister, Amanda, who lived in California and only contacted me when she needed tech support or when there was family drama. Owen, what the hell is going on? Liz called me crying about some party and you asking out her friend. She says you're having a breakdown. Are you okay? I stared at the email for a long time before responding. I'm fine, just exploring my options. Like Liz suggested. Thanks for checking in. Short, polite, and completely uninformative. Let Liz explain the details if she wanted to. By Tuesday, the story had evolved. According to the Neighborhood Gossip Network, I was either having a midlife crisis, planning revenge against Liz, or secretly in love with Mia Sanders. None of the versions were particularly flattering, but they were all better than the truth, that I was tired of being taken for granted and curious to see what happened when I stopped playing by rules that only applied to me. Wednesday brought another phone call, this one from Liz. We need to talk, she said without preamble. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Can you meet me for lunch? When? Now, Cafe Luna, downtown. I looked at my computer screen where I was halfway through debugging a client's network security system. I'm working. This is important, Owen. So is my job. A pause. Please. Something in her voice made me save my work and grab my keys. Cafe Luna was one of those trendy spots that served $15 salads to people who worked in the office buildings nearby. Liz was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with her hands wrapped around a coffee cup like she was trying to warm herself. She looked tired. More than tired. She looked defeated in a way I'd never seen before. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down. What's so urgent? She took a breath, then reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. I want to show you something. She opened her messages and handed me the device. The conversation thread was with someone named Derek. Who's Derek? I asked. Derek Williams. He's a lawyer at Morrison & Associates. We met at a networking event last month. I scrolled through the messages. They were flirtatious, bordering on inappropriate. Nothing explicit, but definitely more than professional courtesy. Why are you showing me this? Because I want you to understand that you're not the only one who's been exploring options. I handed the phone back. Okay. Okay? That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say? You told me you were testing the market. Apparently you weren't kidding. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Aren't you angry? Should I be? Most people would be. Most people wouldn't have their fiancé announce her market research at a party. Liz leaned back in her chair, studying my face. You're different. Different how? Colder, like you've just turned off. Maybe I had. Or maybe I'd just stopped pretending that our relationship was something it wasn't. What do you want, Liz? I want to fix this. I want us to go back to how things were. Before you decided I wasn't good enough? I never said that. You didn't have to. We sat in silence for a moment, the lunch crowd buzzing around us like we were invisible. So what happens now? She asked finally. Now we both see what's out there. Isn't that what you wanted? And if we don't like what we find? I finished my coffee and stood up. Then I guess we'll have learned something valuable about the market. I left her sitting there, staring into her cup like it might have answers. Saturday night was still 3 days away. Saturday arrived with the kind of crisp October weather that made our suburb look like a postcard. I spent the afternoon getting ready for my dinner with Mia, though getting ready mostly meant trying to figure out what the hell I was doing. The honest truth was that I still wasn't particularly interested in Mia Sanders. She was attractive enough, but in the way that expensive cars are attractive, polished, designed for maximum visual impact, and ultimately kind of boring once you looked past the surface. But this wasn't really about Mia. This was about proving a point that I wasn't entirely sure I understood yet. Romano's was busy for a Saturday night, filled with couples celebrating anniversaries and first dates nervously navigating small talk. Mia was already there when I arrived, sitting at a table near the window in a black dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. "You actually came," she said as I sat down. "You sound surprised." "I thought maybe you'd come to your senses." The waiter appeared, eager and young, probably working his way through college. We ordered drinks, wine for her, beer for me, and spent a few minutes pretending to study menus we'd both seen dozens of times. "So," Mia said once we were alone again, "this is weird." "Which part?" "All of it. Being here with you while Liz is... wherever Liz is. Everyone in town talking about us. The fact that you're apparently some kind of master manipulator." "Is that what people are saying?" "Among other things." She took a sip of her wine. "Margaret Chen thinks you planned this whole thing. Janet Morrison thinks you're having some kind of breakdown. And Liz... well, Liz has some theories of her own." "What kind of theories?" "She thinks you're trying to make her jealous, that this is all some elaborate scheme to win her back." I considered this while the waiter brought our appetizers. "What do you think?" "I think you're angry, and I think you have every right to be." That was unexpected. "Really? Look, I love Liz. She's been my best friend for 10 years. But what she did at my party was cruel." Mia picked at her salad, not quite meeting my eyes. "She humiliated you in front of everyone we know, and then she acted surprised when you fought back. You encouraged her." "I did, and I'm starting to think that was a mistake." The admission hung between us like a challenge. I could take the high road, accept her apology, and try to salvage something from this mess, or I could push deeper and see what else she was hiding. "Why?" I asked. "Why what? Why did you encourage her? What did you get out of it?" Mia set down her fork and looked directly at me for the first time since I'd arrived. "Do you really want to know?" I asked, didn't I? She was quiet for a long moment, considering her words. Around us, the restaurant hummed with conversation and the clink of silverware on plates. "Because I was jealous," she said finally. "Of what?" "Of her. Of you two. Of what you had." I leaned back in my chair. "You were jealous of our relationship?" "Not the relationship exactly. The stability, the certainty. Liz knew exactly where she stood with you. She knew you'd be there tomorrow and next week and next year. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" "Apparently not rare enough." Mia laughed, but there wasn't much humor in it. "No, I guess not. But from the outside, looking in, it seemed nice. Boring, maybe, but nice." "So you decided to help her destroy it." "I decided to help her figure out if it was what she really wanted. There's a difference. Is there?" The waiter returned to take our dinner orders. We went through the motions of deciding between pasta and fish, but the real conversation was happening in the spaces between words. "Can I ask you something?" Mia said once we were alone again. "Shoot." "Are you actually interested in me, or is this just about getting back at Liz?" It was a fair question, and she deserved an honest answer. The problem was that I wasn't entirely sure what the honest answer was. "I don't know," I said. "At least you're being truthful." "Would you prefer I lie?" "Most men would." Our entrees arrived, giving us both an excuse to focus on something other than the increasingly strange dynamic developing between us. The food was good, Romano's never disappointed, but I found myself paying more attention to Mia than to my dinner. She was different tonight, less performed, more genuine. The Instagram influencer persona had been replaced by something more real, and I was surprised to discover that I actually liked what I was seeing. "Tell me something," I said. "Like what?" "Something true, something you wouldn't put on social media." She considered this, twirling pasta around her fork. "I hate my job." "You don't have a job. You're an influencer." "Exactly. Do you know what it's like to monetize your entire existence? To turn every meal, every outfit, every moment of your life into content?" She shook her head. "I haven't had a genuine experience in 3 years. Everything is filtered through the lens of whether it'll get engagement." "So why do you do it?" "Because I'm good at it, and because I don't know how to do anything else anymore." It was the first completely honest thing she'd said all evening, and it changed something between us. Not attraction exactly, but recognition. We were both people who'd gotten trapped in roles that no longer fit. "What would you do instead?" I asked. "I used to want to be a teacher, elementary school. I know it sounds ridiculous coming from someone who spends her day taking pictures of her lunch, but I actually love kids. I'm good with them." "What stopped you?" "Life, money, the fact that teachers make nothing, and I'd gotten used to a certain lifestyle." She gestured around the restaurant. "Places like this, clothes that cost more than most people's rent, the whole performance." "You could change." "Could I? Could you?" It was my turn to consider. Could I change? Could I go back to being the Owen who took Liz's criticism quietly, who absorbed her casual cruelty without fighting back, who accepted being treated like a safe but uninspiring choice? "I don't think so," I said. "Then you understand." We finished dinner talking about safer topics, movies, books, mutual acquaintances. But the real conversation had already happened. We were two people who'd discovered that the lives they were living weren't the lives they'd chosen, and that recognition created a strange kind of intimacy. When the check came, I paid without discussion. We walked to the parking lot together, the October air sharp against our faces. "So," Mia said when we reached her car, "this was unexpected?" I was going to say nice, but unexpected works too. She stood there for a moment, keys in her hand, looking like she wanted to say something else. "Owen." "Yeah?" "For what it's worth, I think Liz made a mistake. A big one." "Why?" "Because you're not boring. You're just careful. There's a difference." She got in her car and drove away, leaving me standing alone in the parking lot with more questions than answers. My phone buzzed with a text message. "Liz." "How was your date?" I looked at the message for a long time before responding. "Educational." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Whatever she was typing, she was having trouble finding the right words. Finally, "We need to talk." "Tomorrow," I typed back. "I'm busy tonight." It wasn't true. I was going home to an empty house and a Netflix queue, but it felt important to maintain the illusion that my life had suddenly become more interesting than it actually was. The market test was producing unexpected results. Sunday morning brought rain and a phone call from my sister Rachel. "Mom wants to know if she should still plan on coming for the wedding," she said without preamble. I was sitting in my kitchen, drinking coffee and watching water streak down the windows. "Hello to you too." "Owen, I'm serious. She's booked a flight for next month, but after everything that's been happening..." "What exactly has been happening according to Mom?" "According to Mom, you've lost your mind and are throwing away the best thing that ever happened to you for some Instagram model." I had to laugh. "Is that the official family position?" "That's Mom's position. Dad thinks you should have done this years ago." "Done what?" "Stood up for yourself. He never liked Liz." This was news to me. He never said anything. Of course he didn't. You were happy, or seemed happy, so he kept his mouth shut. But he always thought she treated you like you were lucky to have her instead of the other way around. I set down my coffee cup, processing this. "And you?" "I think you're both idiots, but if I had to pick a side, I'd pick yours." Thanks for the ringing endorsement. "Owen, listen to me. I don't know what's going on with you and this Mia person, and honestly, I don't care. But I've watched Liz treat you like a consolation prize for 5 years. If it took a public humiliation to wake you up, then maybe it was worth it." After Rachel hung up, I sat in my kitchen thinking about consolation prizes and market values and the strange dinner I'd had the night before. Mia had surprised me. Not because she was different than I'd expected, but because she'd been honest about who she was. That was rarer than it should have been. My phone buzzed with another text from Liz. "Can you meet me at the house? We really need to talk." The house. Not my house or our house, but the house. Like it was neutral territory instead of the place I'd been paying the mortgage on for 3 years. "Give me an hour," I replied. I took my time getting ready, partly because I wasn't eager for whatever conversation was waiting for me, and partly because I was curious to see how long Liz would wait. Patience had never been one of her virtues. When I finally arrived, her car was in the driveway, and she was sitting on my front porch, looking like a woman who'd spent the night making difficult decisions. "You're late," she said as I walked up the steps. "I'm exactly when I said I'd be." "You said an hour. It's been an hour and 15 minutes. I unlocked the front door without responding. Some arguments weren't worth having. Inside, Liz went straight to the kitchen and started making coffee, moving around my space like she still belonged there. It was presumptuous, but also familiar in a way that made my chest tight. "So," she said, her back to me as she worked, How was your date? It was dinner with another human being, pretty standard stuff. Don't be flippant. What do you want me to say? She turned around, leaning against the counter with her arms crossed. I want you to tell me what you're doing, what this is all about. I'm exploring my options, like you suggested. I never suggested you ask out my best friend. You suggested I see what else was available. Mia was available. Liz's jaw tightened. This isn't a joke, Owen. You're right, it's not. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same spot where we'd had this same conversation a week ago. It's a market test. Your idea, remember? My idea was for us to be honest about our feelings, to figure out if we were getting married for the right reasons. And what did you figure out? She poured 2 cups of coffee, handed me one, and sat across from me. I figured out that I don't want to lose you. Funny how that works? What do you mean? I mean, you only realized you didn't want to lose me after I stopped being a sure thing. Liz stared into her coffee like it might have answers. Maybe that's true. Maybe I took you for granted. Maybe. Okay, I did take you for granted. I admit that. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. What kind of love is that, Liz? The kind where you keep looking around to see if there's something better. Everyone does that sometimes. No, they don't. People in love don't spend months fantasizing about other options and complaining to their friends about how they might be settling. She was quiet for a long moment. Outside, the rain had picked up, drumming against the windows with increasing intensity. What do you want me to say? She asked finally. I want you to tell me the truth. About what? About why you really wanted to test the market, about what you were hoping to find. Liz set down her coffee cup and looked directly at me. I was hoping to find out that I was wrong, that there wasn't anyone better, that you really were the right choice. And instead? Instead, I found out that the grass isn't always greener, that most of the men out there are worse than you, not better. Most of them? She had the grace to look embarrassed. All of them. All the ones I met, anyway. How many did you meet? Does it matter? It matters to me. Another pause. 3. Derek from the law firm, a guy from my gym, and someone I met at a conference last month. And they were all disappointing. Derek only wanted to talk about himself. The gym guy was an idiot. The conference guy was married and lied about it. I absorbed this information, trying to figure out how I felt about it. Relieved that she'd been disappointed? Angry that she'd tested other options at all? Sad that our relationship had come to this kind of scorekeeping? So now what? I asked. Now we stop this nonsense and get back to planning our wedding. Just like that? Just like that. We've both learned what we needed to learn. The experiment is over. I looked at her sitting across from me, beautiful and confident and completely certain that she could flip a switch and return us to where we'd been a week ago. Like the humiliation and the doubt and the broken trust were just temporary inconveniences that could be swept away with a decision. What about Mia? I asked. What about her? I'm seeing her again. The words came out before I'd fully decided to say them, but once they were in the air, I realized they were true. Liz's face went pale. You're what? We're having lunch tomorrow. Owen, you can't be serious. Why not? The market test isn't over. Yes, it is. I just told you. You told me what you learned. I'm still learning. She stared at me like I'd started speaking a foreign language. You can't actually be interested in her. Why not? Because she's shallow and self-absorbed and completely wrong for you. And yet she's your best friend. That's different. How? Liz opened and closed her mouth several times, apparently unable to articulate the difference between being friends with someone and dating them. This is ridiculous, she said finally. Mia doesn't even like you. She seemed to like me fine last night. She's using you to get back at me. For what? I don't know, for something. That's what she does. She creates drama and then sits back and watches it unfold. I stood up, suddenly tired of the conversation. Maybe she is using me. Maybe I'm using her. Maybe we're all just using each other and calling it relationships. Where are you going? Out. Owen, we're not done talking. Yes, we are. I left her sitting in my kitchen, staring at her coffee cup and probably trying to figure out how she'd lost control of a conversation she'd expected to dominate. Outside, the rain had turned into a proper storm, the kind that made you want to stay inside and watch movies. But I got in my car anyway and drove aimlessly through the empty suburban streets, past the perfect houses with their perfect lawns and their perfect facades, hiding whatever imperfect truths lived behind their doors. My phone buzzed with a text from Mia. Thank you for last night. I had a better time than I expected. I pulled over and typed back, Want to have lunch tomorrow? Her response came quickly. Yes, but not Romano's. Somewhere we won't run into everyone we know. I know a place. The market test was far from over. The place I knew turned out to be a small cafe 40 minutes outside town, the kind of spot that served real food to truck drivers and travelers instead of overpriced salads to people who treated lunch as a social performance. Mia looked different in jeans and a sweater, smaller somehow, more human. She ordered a cheeseburger without checking the calorie count or asking about gluten-free options. This is nice, she said, looking around at the vinyl booths and faded photographs on the walls. When's the last time you ate somewhere that didn't have a wine list? Too long. We talked easily, the awkwardness from Saturday night replaced by something more comfortable. She told me about her childhood in Ohio, about the teaching degree she'd never used, about the slow process of becoming someone she didn't entirely recognize. I found myself telling her things I hadn't shared with anyone, about the loneliness of being in a relationship where you constantly felt like you were auditioning for a role you'd already been cast in, about the exhaustion of pretending that casual cruelty was just Liz's way of showing affection. Why did you stay? Mia asked. Same reason you became an influencer instead of a teacher. It was easier than changing. And now? Now I'm not sure easy is worth it anymore. My phone had been buzzing intermittently throughout lunch. Texts from Liz, missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize, probably friends and family who'd heard various versions of our drama and wanted to weigh in. I ignored them all. You're different than I thought, Mia said as we walked back to our cars. Different how? Stronger, more decisive. I always saw you as this nice, safe guy who let Liz walk all over him. Maybe I was. And now? Now I'm figuring out who I am when I stop trying to be what someone else wants. She stood by her car, keys in hand, looking like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Mia? Yeah? Are you free for dinner Friday? She smiled, and for the first time since I'd known her, it looked completely genuine. Yes, but I'm cooking. My place, 7 o'clock. That evening, I came home to find Liz's car in my driveway again. She was sitting on the porch steps, still in her work clothes, looking like she'd been there for hours. We need to end this, she said without preamble. End what? This game you're playing. This revenge fantasy. Whatever you want to call it. I unlocked the front door and went inside, leaving it open behind me. She followed, closing it with more force than necessary. It's not a game, I said. Then what is it? It's me figuring out what I actually want, instead of just accepting what's offered. And what you want is Mia. The question hung between us like a challenge. The honest answer was complicated. I was attracted to the person Mia was becoming, intrigued by the possibility of building something real instead of performing something fake. But I wasn't ready to reduce that to a simple yes or no. What I want is to stop settling, I said. Settling for what? For being treated like a backup plan. For being the safe choice. For being with someone who spends her time looking for reasons why I'm not good enough. Liz's face crumpled. I never said you weren't good enough. You didn't have to say it. You showed me every day for 5 years. That's not fair. Isn't it? When's the last time you talked about me to your friends without complaining? When's the last time you seemed genuinely happy to see me instead of just relieved that I was still there? She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. We both knew the answer. I love you, she said finally. I know, but you don't like me very much, and I'm tired of pretending that's enough. So that's it? You're choosing her over me? I'm choosing myself over both of you. Mia just happens to be part of that choice. Liz stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her cycling through emotions, anger, hurt, disbelief, and finally something that looked like recognition. You're really doing this, she said. I'm really doing this. And there's nothing I can say to change your mind? Is there something you want to say? She considered this, and I found myself hoping that she would say something, anything, that would make this easier. An apology, a promise to change, an acknowledgement of how we'd gotten to this point. Instead, she said, I hope you're happy with your choice. It wasn't quite an apology, but it wasn't an attack either. It was just sad, which somehow made it worse. After she left, I sat in my empty house thinking about choices and consequences and the strange path that had led me from a humiliating party to a quiet cafe to whatever came next. My phone buzzed with a text from Mia. Thank you for lunch. I'm looking forward to Friday. So was I. The market test was over. The results were in. And for the first time in years, I was genuinely curious about what tomorrow would bring.